Welcome and thank you for joining the Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Program Window 2 Introduction Webinar. This is one in a series of webinar events we are hosting to help you learn more about the basics of the Clean Mobility Options Program and how you can participate. If you are interested in our upcoming webinars and want to stay connected, please sign up to receive the CMO newsletter located on the website at cleanmobilityoptions.org, or you can register for the webinar on our events page under the events tab on the website. Our next webinar will cover Community Transportation Needs Assessment Application Walkthrough for applicants on September 7th and for tribal applicants on September 8th. I want to go over a couple of logistics here. Reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the Clean Mobility Options website within the next 2 to about 4 weeks. We will be using the Zoom webinar raise hand question and answer box to facilitate comments and questions, and we'll provide 5 minutes of verbal questions throughout the webinar. We do have a lot of slides to cover and ask to limit questions to 2 to 3 minutes per person so that we can allow everyone to have the opportunity to speak. I'm Mateo Henderson here, Program Administrator Team Member from CalSTART, along with my colleague Sarah Wang from Shared Use Mobility Center. We both look forward to providing you an overview of the Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Program during this webinar. The Clean Mobility Options is part of California Climate Investments, a statewide initiative that puts billions of cap-and-trade dollars to work, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthening the economy, and improving public health and the environment, particularly in underserved communities. And California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program, which is investing more than $1 billion to accelerate the deployment of zero-emission transportation infrastructure and support in-state manufacturing and workforce training and development. CMO is administered through California Resources Board and their program administrative team. Additionally, the CMO administrative partner team includes CalSTART, Shared Use Mobility Center, and CivicWell. This program is aimed to help underserved communities start their own clean mobility programs by providing financial and community building support. So on today's agenda, we will be covering Clean Mobility Options Program overview with major updates, describe program eligibility criteria and requirements, further differentiate between the two voucher types, provide a brief overview on how to apply, and review resources available as you move through your application. So let's begin on providing an overview of the Clean Mobility Options Voucher Program. CMO is a pilot project that provides voucher-based funding in California's historically underserved communities for community transportation needs assessment, mobility project vouchers that include zero-emission car sharing, carpooling, vanpooling, bike sharing, scooter sharing, innovative transit services, ride-on-demand services, and fixed route transit services. CMO was created out of an effort to address barriers of clean transportation access for low-income and disadvantaged California communities that were identified in the Senate Bill 350 barrier study commissioned by the California Energy Commissions. This program aims to improve access to clean mobility options that are safe, reliable, convenient, and affordable to communities throughout California. It also aims to increase mobility options for low-income and disadvantaged communities by filling gaps in existing transit services, offering first and last mile connections, offering great mobility options in areas underserved by transit, and offering greater flexibility in location, in time, and direction of trips where there is limited or no access to transit. The program aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and pollutants and improve air quality. The program also aims to expand zero-emission vehicle equity and access without high cost of ownership. And also, CMO aims to provide local solutions to serve community needs and inform projects throughout the state while advancing workforce development in the clean transportation sector. Before we move ahead, I want to emphasize that CMO is an equity-based program and further explain why transportation equity matters. Transportation equity matters because it is intrinsically linked to access to economic opportunities and occurs when community residents have the power to make decisions about their own transportation systems. Additionally, transportation equity provides a community's transportation system affordable access, environmentally sustainable, reliable, and safe transportation options to all residents, in particular those who have disproportionately impacted by pollution or lack access to services. So let's discuss what CMO offers. The Clean Mobility Option Program is comprised of two voucher types: Community Transportation Needs Assessment and Mobility Project Voucher. CMO supports awardees through project implementation with capacity building, and in particular through Clean Mobility Equity Alliance, or CMEA, which is a network for clean mobility project implementers and stakeholders to create a clean mobility equity community of practice that empowers participants to create, to collaborate, and share solutions for the CMO program and other emerging markets as well. It also aims to advance mobility justice policy solutions to meet the state's climate, air quality, and equity goals by identifying unique community needs and responsive policy approaches. Also, one of CMO's main assets is the offering of free full cycle technical assistance throughout the program, from pre-application assistance to and through project planning and implementation. CMO's individualized technical assistance has been well utilized, applicants are satisfied, and the TEA has been found to be effective. A couple examples of technical assistance support comes in the form of tools and guides to conduct needs assessment and mobility projects, CMO hotline, emails, program events, and webinars like this throughout the program duration, tribal technical assistance and engagement, education and training as needed, in-person meetings. Our technical assistant providers works with you to help you guide and create the best possible projects. Since CMO is a pilot program, it is evolving, and based on Window 1 awardee feedback and stakeholder, the program administrative team has dedicated a lot of time and effort into updating various eligibility criteria and requirements in order to streamline processes and reduce burdens on awardees, ultimately providing a positive applicant and awardee experience. So let's start. The CMO administrative team listened to the application process experience from Window 1 applicants and worked diligently to develop an online application with mail and email options. We also added a two-step application process for Mobility Project Voucher applicants. This process reduces the amount of upfront work in part 1 when we are simply looking at basic eligibility, general applicant information, and in part 2 allows for more in-depth information about budget, engagement plan, and supporting documentation. So stay tuned to upcoming webinars for more in-depth overviews on how to submit your application. We also expanded project eligibility to include all AB 1550 low-income communities and disadvantaged communities that are identified in Cal Screen 4.0. This allows for more applicants to access available funds to implement clean mobility projects and needs assessments throughout California. We also included full cost reimbursement for zero-emission medium-duty vehicles like Van Pool to reduce cost burdens. Additionally, CARB's existing regional project grantees like Blue Parlay can apply as lead applicants for a new project, expansion of their current services, or continue the existing funded project to support long-term sustainability. We also have significantly increased the Community Transportation Needs Assessment voucher budget to $100,000 over the course of 12 months. We have also expanded voucher funding for 3 years of service operation for mobility project vouchers. And lastly, we allow reimbursement for administrative costs throughout the entire voucher agreement term. So let's discuss what a voucher is and dive further into details of the two voucher types CMO offers. So what is a voucher? A voucher is a type of contract that serves as a promise of payment between CMO program administrators and awardees. The voucher-based funding is different from grant funding in that you don't receive the funds up front. Instead, payments are issued when project milestones are reached based on a voucher term and on a reimbursement basis. So as mentioned, CMO offers two types of vouchers, which these images showcase. First, on the left is a community engagement effort completed by Bike Ventura as required for the Community Transportation Needs Assessment. And on your right, the Mobility Project for the City of Richmond residents demonstrating their service operation. So let me explain a little more in detail. The first voucher type is the Community Transportation Needs Assessment Voucher, which is intended to help identify and help evaluate transportation needs and gaps in your community. It is also an opportunity to educate residents on new service models that they may be unfamiliar with and to help them understand better transportation options. A need assessment also empowers community members to be a part of the decision-making process and facilitate a sense of ownership in the project, which is a key factor in transportation equity. Funding is specifically for applicants to conduct a community transportation assessment. It is also designed to help get you ready to apply for a mobility project voucher in future application rounds. So there is a total of $1 million available for needs assessment vouchers with a maximum of $100,000 available for each needs assessment voucher for 12 months. Of the $1 million, $200,000 is set aside specifically for California Native American tribes. The window 2 application is tentatively set to open in fall, winter 2022 for community transportation needs assessment. So the second voucher type is the Mobility Project Voucher, which is intended to support the planning, the development, implementation of small-scale clean mobility projects throughout the state. There is a total of $20 million available for project vouchers, and of the $20 million, $1 million is set aside specifically for California Native American tribes, and $10 million set aside for previous CT&A awardees. The maximum project budget for Mobility Project Voucher is $1 million per project type for a 5-year term. The window 2 application for Mobility Project Vouchers is tentatively set to open in fall 2022, winter 2023. Okay, we are going to provide an overview of the application evaluation process and key components to submission. Unlike other solicitations for low carbon transportation initiative funding, this program is a non-competitive grant application process for scoring and granting. So applications are reviewed and approved on a first come, first served basis in order of timestamp until the funds are exhausted. If the number of applications submitted on the first day exceeds the funding amount, it will then trigger a randomization process. This is a non-competitive application process, is intended to lower barriers for clean mobility funding in underserved communities. So we will dive deeper into this a little bit later, into the application, the randomization, and waitlist process in the event of oversubscription. But for now, this is just to provide a brief overview. Lastly, first come, first serve is for window 2 only. CARB may explore different approaches and remove first come, first serve components in future windows. So stay tuned. First, the application window for CT&A is tentatively open in fall 2020 and is only a one-part application process. However, on the other hand, the Mobility Project Voucher application is tentatively set to open in winter 2022-2023 with 2 parts. As mentioned earlier, part one of the application process is intended to lower the barriers for those who meet the application eligibility requirements. So some examples include general application information, needs assessment results, and service model. Once reviewed, only applicants approved during part one will be notified by the program administrator of advancement to continue to part two and a submission of a final application. Part two of the application process includes more in-depth information about budget, financial and engagement plans, and additional supporting documentation. We will definitely let you know the exact dates soon. And if you haven't already, please sign up on the CMO website to receive the CMO newsletter for most current program information at cleanmobilityoptions.org. So here's our program timeline with key dates. Please note most of these dates are tentative, and we will inform you of exact dates once we confirm shortly. So beginning at the end of June 2020, we published a new CMO implementation manual, which is available to access online and is downloadable in PDF form. Also, during this time, we launched an entirely new website. So please visit cleanmobilityoptions.org to learn more about the program and to access the application portal for Window 2 applications. Moving on into summer, fall 2022, winter 2023, we will continue with CMO Window 2 outreach stage, which includes one-on-one outreach, webinar series, on-site visits to community workshops and council meetings and other types of forums where we can get the word out to priority populations. If you are interested in a CMO team member visiting your community, please reach out to us to see if we can potentially set up a conversation about the CMO program to your community, stakeholders, and adjacent neighbors. Also, we are currently offering one-on-one pre-application technical assistance specific to the application process, which includes email communication, phone calls, and video chats. Moving into fall 2022, winter 2023 here in the graph, the application window for CTNA and MPV Part 1 will open, so please stay tuned. Continuing down into the winter 2023, we will announce the awardees for needs assessment, send a notice to proceed for MPV, Mobility Project Voucher Part 2, and during this time, Part 2 application development begins with ongoing technical assistance. Once we head out of winter and into spring 2023, the Mobility Project Voucher application Part 2 deadline will occur with subsequent months for review and awardees announced. So let's discuss program eligibility and requirements. This eligible project area map is a visual tool and does not determine eligibility, just to clarify. Also, this map only shows federally recognized tribes and is therefore not a complete picture. This program is designed to meet the mobility needs of California's underserved communities. That being said, the project area is defined as the geographic area where the users live, where the users will operate the service, and where infrastructure is to be installed. So listen up, this gets a little intense. To qualify, the project area served must fall into one or three of these eligible project areas. It is an SB 535 disadvantaged community located in Cal EPA's Cal Enviroscreen 4.0. This screening tool lists consensus tracts that are disproportionately burdened and vulnerable to multiple sources of population pollution. It is located in an AB 1550 low-income community. It is a tribal land only when and within SB 535 disadvantaged communities or AB 1550 low-income communities. Also, non-federal tribes may still be eligible if they are in AB 1550 low-income communities or disadvantaged communities. To help you navigate eligible project areas, we have provided on the CMO website an interactive map. where specific requirements are listed. Now that we've reviewed eligible project areas, let's move to who can apply to the Clean Mobility Options pilot program. In this program, lead applicants can be public agencies. This means federal, state, or local entities based in California, such as cities, counties, metropolitan planning organizations, council of government, local or regional transit agencies, local air quality management districts, or air pollution control districts and public school districts. Moving down the list, nonprofits, any 501 nonprofit organization that has operated for at least 1 year and is based in California or possesses at least one full-time staff person based primarily in California. Also, nonprofits that are registered and in active good standing with California Secretary of State. Additionally, lead applicants can be California Native American tribes. All California Native American tribes are eligible to apply, including federally and non-federally recognized California Native American tribes. On the right side, let's discuss a sub-applicant, which is really any entity who you will partner with to help you complete the needs assessment. This includes organizations that provide community outreach services, transportation planning, and technical assistance such as translation services, mapping, or data analysis on your needs assessment. Sub-applicants may be public, private, or tribal governments, or nonprofit organizations, or any entity with lead applicant eligibility. Also, the lead applicant the lead applicant may participate as a sub-applicant in other applications. So just a little clarification there. So moving down, the CMO administrative team provides a mapping tool to help identify your project area eligibility and recommends that prior to applying to CMO, review the implementation manual to really fully understand what is expected of applicants and future Window 2 awardees. These tools listed here are accessible again at cleanmobilityoptions.org. We will also walk through the website to help provide some visual of where these toolkits are. So I would like to stop here to spend the next 5 minutes only for the PA team to answer any questions you have over the material we covered. Keep in mind, we still have application overview, website walkthrough, and technical assistance review. If you would like to ask questions, please raise the hand icon located on your screen, and we will unmute you. Also, feel free to write questions in the Q&A chat, and we will try to answer them in real time. So I'll stop there.
Okay, we've got a question from Sean Cook.
Yes, hi. Thank you for taking my question. I am with the Koreatown Community Services, we're a local nonprofit here in Los Angeles. Question is in regard to the partners or subconsultants or subcontractors. We're interested in applying for the CTNA voucher, and I'm wondering if we don't have a transportation consultant in place, or we haven't engaged them yet. Do you think it's better to apply with that person together as a partner, or can that consultant be identified at a later time?
Thank you, Sean. That's a really good question. Ideally, I think we prefer that those applicants apply together. Whereas if there is issues or concerns about not being able to land a partner, then I think talking to the administrative team and working through that to assist you in getting a provider or a partner. One other thing is that we do have the technical assistance available, so we can always, sit down through a chat and talk through other options as well. But it is preferred to, have the lead applicant and the sub applicant applying together for the eligibility checks that we review during the review process.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's plenty in the chat, working through those now. I'm going to get those out as quickly as we can.
Great. In that case, I think I'm just going to continue through.
I think I see one
Actually,
from Glenn. Yeah, from Glenn Cho.
Great.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Glenn Cho from Toyota Motors North America. I had a question about if a public college like a Cal State or UC or even a community school college applies, are they considered to be a lead applicant or a sub applicant?
So again, like the overall lead applicants would be public agencies, nonprofits, or any additional, nonprofits or Native American tribes. But we do have the public school districts.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that would be under a public school districts under lead applicants.
Okay, so the question is if a public college system, whether it's a community college based or Cal State based or UC based, if they apply, are they considered to be lead applicants or are they part of sub applicants? Because they would be technically be considered public agency, correct?
Yeah, I believe, community college districts and public school districts can qualify under being like a local government agency. I'm not sure about, Cal State universities and University of California. We can, check on that. But I guess it also depends on what role, if you're doing more the research or if you're doing more of like leading the project and the kind of mobility search.
Yeah, it will be like leading the project for the like pursuing the mobility vouchers.
Okay.
I'll just pipe in here. This is Lauren from SEMC. If you're a university or public entity, most of universities are nonprofits. So if you're qualified as a college or university in nonprofit status, you would qualify to be a lead applicant under nonprofit.
Thank you for that question.
Okay, Mateo, there's a couple questions in the chat. One was, can you help walk through the timeline again?
For the overall application process?
Yes, my guess is yes.
Yeah, so in this slide, basically what we're identifying is the phases of the application process and review and notice of award. So as you can see here in the fall, we're technically here, summer, fall, we're kind of here right now with doing technical assistance and outreach. And then moving down the line, fall 2022, winter 2023, we will, the application will open. And again, that is a tentative date for CTNA and potentially for MPV Part 1. And then as we move into winter 2023, we will award the CTNAs, and we will provide a notice to proceed to part 2 to those MPV applicants who have been reviewed and moving on because of the evaluation process. And then after that, we will, the MPV Part 2 application development period will begin, where there'll be additional available technical assistance to those Part 2 applicants. And that is a lot of different types of budgeting, community engagement plans, and additional community contribution and other documentation. And then in spring 2023, we will review the applications are due for part 2, and we will then review and approve the application. One thing that I will state is that the process is a bit different. Like I said, it's a first come, first serve. If oversubscribed, it will move into a randomization process and potential waitlist process. However, we will review that in detail a little bit further in this slide deck. But hopefully that helps kind of guide you through the timeline of what we're wanting to know about. I'm gonna let us have one more minute, if you don't mind, so we can kind of move through. But by all means, pop any other questions that you want to talk about. Happy to help out. Happy to walk through.
There's one by Jesho Yang.
Hi, my name is Jay Yang. I am from the Asia Pacific Islander 4 movement in the LA area. I wanted to see, I know that the program is on reimbursement basis, but I was curious about how much was allowable or the percentage for indirect costs for nonprofit.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I'm curious about the percentage allowed for indirect costs for nonprofits from this particular grant.
Great. Crystal, do you mind popping in and answering that question? I think it'll be super helpful. She's our voucher and reimbursement specialist.
Yeah, indirect costs are eligible expenses. So we would work with you on verifying what those rates are, and they are eligible costs to be reimbursed.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Well, thank you everyone for your great questions. If we need to, we'll reach back out to you for clarification, but hopefully we're able to answer your questions. And again, if you would like additional clarification, just pop some more questions into the Q&A and we'd be happy to answer them in real time. So with that, I'm going to continue. So let's dive into what a community transportation needs assessment is and how and why to complete one. So a needs assessment is intended to help underserved communities identify their transportation access needs, preferences, and priorities, and to really evaluate these mobility gaps through a representative community engagement process. This process can then inform the type of mobility needs for a future mobility voucher application. A needs assessment is a required component of a mobility project voucher application, and it must be fully completed prior to submitting a mobility project voucher. Community transportation needs assessment includes transportation access data analysis, community engagement analysis, and lastly, a summary report. Here is an image of past Window 1 Community Transportation Needs Assessment awardees conducting their public survey with the community. We are really excited to see how you all create your engagement process and look forward to reviewing. So what are the CTNA requirements to fulfill? One, transportation access data analysis objective is to identify, and it is to improve the understanding of travel behavior and gaps in the transportation access within the community through a comprehensive data analysis. This is a quantitative analysis of communities' mobility needs. It includes an analysis of at least 3 additional data sources that explore, reliability, accessibility, affordability of the current transportation options. In addition to requirements is a resident survey as well. So what we are not asking is each of you to create a new research, but instead to find data you have or you can acquire within the addition to administering surveys, basically in order to analyze the transportation access in the community. So to expand on that a little bit further, surveys may be administered through paper or online questionnaires, in-person interviews, and should include an option for residents that do not have access to a computer or the internet. The 3 additional data accessibility sources can include any of the following, such as EPA walkability index, median household income, vehicle ownership per household, access to job opportunities, cost of existing transit, and average cost per week for fueling cars. In addition, we ask you to talk to community members through 2 different types of community engagement, such as in-person or virtual workshops or webinars, and possibly house meetings or focus groups or even interviews. So please note that the creative and accessible virtual engagements are encouraged, obviously due to special circumstances when in-person interactions are limited. And then finally, a summary of outcomes. This reports on the findings of the transportation access data analysis. It reports on the community engagement efforts. It also includes outcomes of how the 2 elements are either reinforced or contradict each other. So super important. If you're finding that you don't have the resources to administer this needs assessment, or you're not ready to submit a Mobility Project Voucher, then this is the voucher that we encourage you to apply for a needs assessment. And then lastly, a future Mobility Project Voucher application will need to demonstrate a direct connection between the needs assessment findings in a past needs assessment and the proposed project. So just some clarification there. Moving along, here is an example of 2 community transportation needs assessment awardees for window 1, where on the left, San Diego County is shown demonstrating their transportation access data sources and gap analysis, while on the right, Community Resource Project is in full swing with their community engagement strategy using incentives and cool virtual reality to engage students and other participants. Much of what I mentioned for needs assessment requirements has been further developed into resources and into toolkits to further support everyone's understanding of the requirements and also to help guide you to successfully complete your voucher for both the CTNA and the prerequisites of CTNA for the Mobility Project Voucher. So you have data collection guide, summary report guide, community engagement guide, survey guide, and sample survey templates. We really do try very, very hard to provide all of the applicants and awardees with as much information, as much tools as possible, which is what Sarah will discuss a little bit further in this webinar. So I know this is a lot of information, and there will be additional webinars to further dive into both the Community Transportation Needs Assessment application and also the Mobility Project Voucher application. In addition to that, we are here to help support you, the administrative team, CARB, CEC, everyone. We are here to really work with you and help advance your clean transportation and mobility services. With that, I will stop, and this is the end of my section, but I do want to provide additional time for questions. Again, this will only be 5 minutes, as we do need to move through the advancements of the presentation. But let's stop there, answer a couple questions, and I'll Sarah will introduce herself for the second part.
We have a few questions. First one from Tianjun Lu. If you want to unmute yourself.
How recent does the needs assessment need to be?
So I guess for applying for the mobility project, it does need to be within, I guess, 4 years. So it must be done within 4 years of applying. Does that help to answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. And then we have another question from Jen Hernandez.
Hi, I was wondering how we can assess whether previous needs assessments done by like our city or our county are sufficient to qualify us for applying for a implementation project.
So the requirements for the CTNA are similar to, for MPV are similar to the requirements for just the actual community transportation needs assessment, data access analysis, community engagement, and some report demonstrating the connection between the community's needs and the transportation and mobility options. Maybe someone else can also further explain that, but it's basically, you know, their criteria is similar to, if not the same, to what we ask for the CTNAs. But we also do kind of review it and make sure that those requirements have been fulfilled in the actual needs assessment for MPV.
Thank you.
Great, and then we have a question from Laura Stachinsky.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm that the needs assessment has to be done for the community what the program is going to be in. And in past years, I heard that it needed to be interviews. I mean, it needed to be surveys but you're saying that you now can do in-person interviews. Just wanted to clarify just that. And also, is there a number of surveys that you're requiring, or is there none? No requirement on that point.
So for that, you would need to, I guess, complete surveys, but those could also be done verbally, since I think not everyone is able to fill out like, you know, paper or online surveys. So I think that's what we mean when you could also include interviews in your process. And then those do need to come, I think, for the community that you're planning to do the project in.
And is there a minimum number of surveys that you want?
No, so there's no minimum number of surveys, but I think enough where you are able to kind of analyze the data and see, you know, certain trends coming out of your needs assessment process.
Thanks.
We got a couple more minutes for verbal Q&A, so let us know what you would like for us to answer.
I think we have a question from Sean Cook.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if demand modeling is a part of the needs assessment. Is that if that's like a required part?
Like modeling if there's a demand for a certain kind of service or transportation option?
Or no, just trying to, in terms of being able to measure systems improvements, VMT improvements and what have you, if you're?
No, so that's not a requirement, I guess, of the needs assessment. The needs assessment just needs kind of the transportation data analysis, the survey, and the kind of community engagement. And then if you do get, I think, the Mobility Project Voucher, throughout that process, we as the program admin team would help to try to measure the impacts of your project, whether you are reducing VMT or things are improving or behavior is changing with your project.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to stop there with questions and answers. If you weren't able to verbally ask, please just write it in the chat and we will follow up in a timely manner. With that, I will introduce Sarah Wang, a project manager for Shared Use Mobility Center, project and program manager for Shared Use Mobility Center. So Sarah, take it away.
Great. So I think now I'll be going over what we define as a mobility project and provide some examples and what is required for the Mobility Project Voucher. I think I want to go to the next slide, maybe. So we define a mobility project as one that is designed to meet the transportation needs of a community through planning, launch, and ongoing operations of a shared mobility service. So this includes various components such as the vehicles themselves, supporting infrastructure, mobility services, and the users. As Mateo mentioned, the project must be one of the eligible service models, and applicants must demonstrate that the proposed project is responsive to transportation needs and preferences of the community, and that transportation solutions were identified through meaningful and broad-based engagement. And so here we just wanted to show some examples of 2 mobility projects from window 1 to demonstrate the different types of projects. So the first example here is Richmond Moves, a mobility project that was launched earlier this spring. For this project, the City of Richmond's Department of Transportation developed Richmond Moves to provide a clean on-demand shuttle service that picks up community members and drops them off at their desired locations or common popular drop-off locations within the community. Richmond partnered with VIA to provide an easy turnkey solution that allowed them to launch their services quickly with leased plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and drivers hired from within the community. The services are providing rides Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with heavily discounted prices for tickets of $2 per ride, with free services provided to seniors and students. The other example we have here is the Rialto Bike Share program, which is an upcoming mobility project that will be launching in the upcoming months. They're planning to launch with over 100 e-bikes and charging stations that are placed within various parts of the city of Rialto. And Rialto is working closely with Alta Planning and Drop Mobility to implement these services. The program will offer subsidized memberships to low-income community members, and the e-bikes will be kept within the Rialto community through a virtual geofence. So now moving on to what's required of an MPV. In order to be eligible to apply for a mobility project voucher, an applicant must complete a community transportation needs assessment. The community transportation needs assessment must be completed by the time of application submission and be a basis for the project idea. So applicants may rely on existing assessments and activities that were done within the past 4 years if they are consistent with the requirements and conditions as defined by Mateo earlier. The project area must be represented by the community transportation needs assessment, and there must be a clear connection between the findings from the needs assessment and the proposed project. And then a summary report or final report must be produced through the needs assessment process, and that must be attached and included with the mobility project application. So in addition to the needs assessment, there are the major requirements. Here are some other major requirements to pay attention to. You must have one partner within the project team that has at least 1 or more years of experience operating mobility services. The project also must be based on the needs assessment, including, the transportation data sources, a survey, and community engagement with community members. The project model, again, must be, a zero emission car sharing, bike or scooter sharing, carpooling or van pooling, innovative transit or on-demand shuttle, ride-on-demand services, or fixed route transit. And it could either be one of these services or a combination of these mentioned services. Lastly, MPV voucher recipients must commit to at least 4 years of operations of the transportation service. So now I'll be discussing kind of what project models work best for what situations. So this really depends on kind of where and how far community members are going within your project area. The graphic here helps to kind of show which project models work best based on the length of trips and the scope of the project area. So for projects where trips are expected to be shorter or connecting to public transit stations, bike share, scooter share, and innovative transit are generally a better fit for the community. While for longer distances where people are driving to similar destinations together, like for work or school, or they have multiple trips to make over a larger area, a ride on demand, a car share, or a carpool, vanpool, or fixed route transit service may be a better fit. So I guess what type of organizations may apply? So Mateo did kind of go over this, but organizations that should consider applying include local and tribal governments in California and nonprofit community organizations that can apply as either the project lead or as sub-applicants. And then mobility and charger providers can be added as either sub-applicants or subcontractors to the main project. And trying to develop these partnerships that can have different types of organizations can help create benefits for those involved and lend to the strength and expertise of each organization. So, for example, local and tribal governments may be able to provide land and access to public right-of-ways, have additional funding or additional facilities, while community-based organizations may have a greater connection and trust with the community. And lastly, mobility providers may have greater experience and technical expertise in developing and launching similar mobility services. So some considerations to think about in your services. We do recommend thinking about who you're providing services to and where the infrastructure and vehicles should be placed. The project area is defined as the geographic area where the community and residents live, and most of the services and infrastructure for the project will be installed. You also want to think about what kind of neighborhood this project will serve, if it will be an urban or suburban neighborhood, or if it will be a small rural community. These factors, in addition to the outcomes of your needs assessment, can influence and affect which service models you choose, since you will have to have 3 years of operations that are covered by the voucher funding, but you will also need to operate for at least 1 additional year without funding support from the CMO voucher. So CMO funds can cover the planning and construction for the first 15 months and the first 5 years of project operations. Lastly, CMO funds can be used for administrative purposes throughout the 5-year voucher agreement. That means you can receive technical assistance, bill for hours spent communicating with the program administrative team, and in collecting data and writing quarterly reports for the program. So this next slide has a table that kind of shows and explains in detail what I was explaining in the previous slide. The voucher agreement term will start from whenever the voucher agreement is signed and executed for the applicants that are accepted and announced as awardees. Following that, you would get an onboarding and have a project kickoff meeting. Then you will have up to 15 months for planning and construction, purchasing your vehicles, and doing outreach for project design and site planning. Once operations have launched, which would be sometime during that 15 months or at the 15-month mark, depending on how much time is needed for that, the project will have 4 years of service operations, with 3 years covered by CMO funds and 1 year that is unfunded. And then throughout the whole period, there will be data reporting requirements that occur before and throughout operations of the service. So now I'll be going over the eligible costs that are covered by the CMO funds. So costs that are eligible throughout the Mobility Project Voucher include planning, capital purchases, operations and maintenance, outreach and marketing, and administration. As described in the slide, planning includes any work needed to prepare and plan for service launch, including contracting, infrastructure, siting, and permitting. Capital costs includes the purchasing of vehicles and associated hardware, the cost for software, EV charging equipment, and infrastructure installation. Operations and maintenance includes vehicle leases, subsidies provided to service users, insurance, repairs, in addition to any other staff needs such as rebalancing vehicles or providing in-call reservations or customer service. Outreach and marketing is any kind of community engagement and outreach efforts to get community input and to promote the service prior to and during service operations. And then administrative costs include any of the work that's done towards payment requests, meetings with the administrator team, data collection for reporting and evaluation, and attendance of CMEA meetings, which is the peer learning network for awardees for capacity building. So I guess for those who might be worried about not having a mobility provider in mind or being unsure of what type of service model best fits your community needs, CMO does have a mobility provider directory of various hardware, software providers who can provide full turnkey solutions. They can provide specific vehicles, who can provide software for operating your specific mobility service, or a combination of what was mentioned. So this ranges from bikes, scooters, car share, on-demand shuttle services, carpooling, van pooling, and the charging infrastructure. So the providers that are kind of shown in this slide and in the directory responded to an RFI to be added to this list that shows that they meet the eligibility requirement of at least 1 year of experience and are registered to conduct business in California with good standing with the California Secretary of State. However, in addition to the providers that are listed here on this slide, there are also other providers who do meet the requirements and eligibility who might not have, I think, applied to be added to our directory, who you can also add to your projects. And then lastly, this slide and list of providers are just a resource for project development and don't reflect the views and policies of California Air Resources Board, nor does the mention and list of these logos organizations constitute any endorsement or recommendation. So in addition to the mobility provider directory, the CMO program admin team also has several resources and guides that can help you at whatever stage you are on the application. We do have a project design guide, a cost guide, a local hiring guide, a site planning guide, a community engagement guide, and a contract and procurement guide. These have not yet been added to our website, but they will be included in the upcoming months. And then for those who are looking for examples and case studies and more in-depth information on various shared mobility models, the Shared Use Mobility Center's Mobility Learning Center has learning modules where you can take a deeper dive into certain project models, look into tools for calculating and analyzing data, and read about various stories, videos, and studies to support your research and learning needs. I don't know if I should pause for any questions here. We do have, I guess, a lot of information that I shared. So maybe we'll just take 5 minutes here if there's any questions. Not seeing any, I'll just move forward with going over kind of the CMO application. So I guess for the application, I guess we do have a question, so just kidding. If Jesho Yang, if you want to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious to see if the costs are allowed for improvements for public transportation amenities. I know it's allowable for charging stations, but I'm curious about amenities that's more like physical in a certain location, I guess.
Yeah, so existing amenities, kind of like bus stops or bus shelters, that kind of thing.
Yeah, along that route.
I don't believe those qualify. I think if they're connected to one of the other models where it's a bus shelter that also is like a charger, for scooters or something, that could count. But I think as of right now, those aren't included.
Got it. Thank you.
And then I think we have a question from Christine Vitarelli.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a quick question. So I'm thinking about a planning project for expanding our transit services to increase ridership and to reduce air pollution because half of our fleet is already electric. And my thought process or my question is whether or not if we were to expand route service, so we added bus routes and added additional times, because right now we're kind of limited. We cut off at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It would be great if we could offer expanded transit through like 7 or 8 p.m. If we were to consider something like that, would the cost of the drivers employing an additional driver be covered under this application?
So that would be to extend existing services of fixed route transit using electric buses, expanding both like, I guess, the number of people hired. So there's more frequency and there's, I guess, longer times that it's available.
Exactly.
That is a good question. I know we did have, I guess, some changes in our implementation manual that allow fixed route services, but I think we might have to look into that and come back to you to know for sure if that does qualify or not.
Okay, thank you. We also have a dial-a-ride service, which is more or less on demand. It would be great to offer expanded services for that as well. But, you know, the question always comes down, not just the vehicles, but the cost of hiring an additional driver or drivers. And I could probably put together a really good 3-year budget, but I'd like to know whether or not that proposition would be covered.
Christine, sorry. Those costs would be covered under the operation and maintenance in the budget line item and budget category. So if you are extending service, if you're extending the route and you're extending the service, that would include keeping the drivers on for longer, you know, maybe to like 5 or 6 or whatever you had mentioned. And so those costs incurred for the operations and of the drivers would be included in the voucher funding.
Great, thank you.
All right, I guess if there's no other questions, we'll move on to, I think, the next part of our presentation. So the application review process and award process happens in 4 general stages. After the submission period closes, the administrator will begin the review process. Applications are reviewed for completeness as they come in, and our TA team will help to try to ensure that you are submitting a complete application that's meeting eligibility requirements. During that time, there will be a grace period where applicants may be asked to provide clarification on their application without losing their place in the queue. After the project has been reviewed and projects have been determined to be eligible or not, and the order of applicants show who will receive an award, the administrator will send out notifications to applicants within 8 weeks after submission window closes. Following the notification, applicants must obtain approval of their board, council, and other necessary authority before signing the voucher agreement. And this is for, I guess, both the CTNA and MPV. So to start off, I do want to also go over the application requirements for the Community Transportation Needs Assessment. The main component needed includes a project narrative, a project team profile, a project area, a proposed budget, a filled out CTNA budget worksheet, and letters of commitment and support. We will be having a future webinar that goes over in detail these requirements and goes through the application and provides examples. As previously mentioned, the Community Transportation Needs Assessment Voucher has 1 application deadline, while the Mobility Project Voucher has 2 parts. So I'll be going over the requirements for these 2 parts for the MPV and how that works. So for the first part, this includes a short project narrative, a project team profile, a Community Transportation Needs Assessment that was completed within 4 years of submission, and your project area profile. The application process for part 1 includes a period to receive technical assistance from the program admin team for application development. Then at a determined date and time, the application window will open. Following the receipt of the applications during the window, a list will be posted to show the confirmed application submissions. If there is an oversubscription of funds, there will be a randomization process to ensure equitable access to funds. Following that, a final list of organizations that can move forward to part 2 and a wait list will be posted. So to help explain the randomization process, this was included for window 2 to help address some of the challenges that we previously heard, such as applicants with slower internet speed not being able to submit their application when the window first opened. So for context, during window 1, I think we received more than half of the applications in less than the first minute of the window opening. So based on feedback from applicants and the difficulty of submitting, applications, when the window did open, we are having this randomization process to avoid the same situation from window 1. So for transparency, the list of applications submission and the time in which they are received will be posted in advance of the randomization process. To help explain, randomization is like adding the applications that we received on that first day into a hat and pulling them out and listing them in a new order. And the randomization process only happens if the number of applications received within that first day is more than double the amount of funding available. So analogy, I guess I like to think of is, I guess with the, like when you're trying to get a ticket for a concert that's super popular and there's a limited number of tickets that sell out, we're trying to avoid that situation where you're really trying to just submit it in that first, minute or second. Lastly, applications that are received after that first day, after 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, will be waitlisted in the order that in which they are received. And then only those that are notified that they have passed through to part 2, which again will be through a first come first served basis, unless funds are exceeded by twice the amount of applications, will be directed to work on the part 2 of the application and to submit those materials then within a 3-month window. Requirements for part 2 include a detailed project narrative, a project milestone schedule, a mobility project voucher budget worksheet, a financial sustainability plan, a community outreach plan, at least 5 community resource contributions, and letters of commitment and support. So to support you all through the application process, we have both a sample application for the Community Transportation Needs Assessment and the Mobility Project Voucher Part 1 application, which will be available soon on the CMO website. We also have an application walkthrough webinar, which will be coming up soon and which we will be recording that. So there's easy access for you to go back to that and to see how to go through the application. So now we'll do a quick walkthrough of the CMO website. And for those of you who have visited our website before, you'll probably notice that we have updated our website to hopefully be easier to navigate and easier for user interface. So to access our website, you will go on to www.cleanmobilityoptions.org. And then let me share my screen. And then you all can see that. Oops. So as you see, I guess for this first page, this is just kind of the main page where you can see everything. And if you go to the About page, that's where you can, learn more about the program, about the goals for the CMO, and who's on our administrator team. And if you go to the application resources, you can go and read the implementation manual, which is our program guide that kind of explains all the requirements and eligibility requirements for the program. So if you have any questions, this is a great resource to use to try to, find what exactly you're trying to understand about whether your project or your application is qualified or not. And then under the application resources, we also have the Mobility Project application and the needs assessment application, and kind of a web page that shows the process that we have been talking about. So there's kind of a graphic here that can help you better understand what we mean by that 2-part process and what we mean by first come first serve. In addition to that, we have kind of window 1 awardees and applicants from the needs assessment and mobility projects here if you want to learn more about them. And then lastly, and most importantly, we do have this page where you can click to kind of receive technical assistance. So here we have the online form and the other ways to contact us for support. And then Mateo, I don't know if you want to share the slides back. And if you can go to, I guess, the next 2 slides. Great, I guess I'll pause here for any questions before I talk about technical assistance. So yeah, I guess feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, or if you feel like adding it to the Q&A box, that is also fine as well. Someone asked, I think, to show the slide for what's required for part 2 of the application. So yeah, for this one, part 2 does require, I think, a fair bit more. And yeah, I guess if you do want to look through that, we will be kind of sharing these slides after this presentation as well. All right, I'm not seeing, I guess, any questions from the audience in terms of raised hands. So I guess we'll go into technical assistance and then our team will help to answer any of the questions that came in through Q&A. So now I'll briefly go over what technical assistance is available to applicants that are interested in the CMO program and how you can access it. So to start off, our technical assistance team does consist of our 3 partner organizations that are all working to help interested potential applicants. This includes CalSTART, Civic Well, and Shared Use Mobility Center. So if you reach out for support and get an email or call from someone from one of these organizations, don't be alarmed or confused. We are all here to and part of the CMO program admin team and are here to help you. So technical assistance is available to all prospective applicants who are interested in CMO. This refers to one-on-one support through email communication, phone calls, or video calls to support applicants in applying for the program or in preparing to apply. This can include guidance and answers to questions you may have to help you understand the program eligibility, the application process, guidance and recommendations in conducting a needs assessment prior to applying for the Mobility Project Voucher, project planning, developing partnerships, and more. What this does not include is any direct assistance or work when it comes to helping you fill out the application, in conducting your needs assessment, or in creating your budget or developing contracts. Those things you would have to do yourself. So there are many ways where you can access technical assistance. One way is to access it through our online form, which you saw in the CMO website walkthrough. You can fill out your information and whatever questions or scenarios you want to discuss with the TA team, and you'll get a response within 3 to 5 days. You can also call the CMO hotline where you can verbally share your questions, concerns, and project ideas, and a TA provider will be able to talk through your questions and provide clarification. You can also email us at info@cleanmobilityoptions.org and get an email response within 3 to 5 days. Lastly, we are also holding TA office hours from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursdays starting next week, where you can pop into the virtual meeting space to ask your questions or discuss your project idea. A few members from the TA team will be there to help you and will be sharing more information on how to access this later. So as we mentioned, we do have several resources, some of which were mentioned in previous slides, which can help you, including a needs assessment toolkit, the project implementation toolkit, the application toolkit, sample CTNA and MPV Part 1 applications, and the Clean Mobility Provider Directory. Some of this is not yet on our website as we are currently in the process of updating it, but those will be added soon. And then lastly, we have a few upcoming webinars where we'll be going into the Mobility Project Voucher application, the Needs Assessment Voucher application. We'll have some webinars specifically focused and for tribal communities, one that's meant to provide opportunities to connect with mobility providers and build partnerships. And lastly, one that provides some guidance on expectations and program parameters to help you set you up for success as an awardee. So the next webinars we have will be a walkthrough of the Community Transportation Needs Assessment application, both for general applications and a focused one for tribal communities on September 7th and September 8th. So stay tuned for the link for those to register. And I believe that's all we have for this webinar. So I guess now we'll open it for any other questions that you have, I guess, for any of the topics that we discussed today.
One thing I'll just add real quick is I'm told that the Q&A, some of it's not visible to everyone that's participating in the webinar. And I just want to say that we will be sharing out the questions and answers that have been asked in the Q&A throughout this webinar. We've got about 35 questions, so, and some really good stuff. So that will be available to you all.
All right, I guess, are there any other questions?
There is a question from Robin Marquis. Just unmuted you, Robin.
Thanks, Crystal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm part of the admin team. I saw there was a question about the number of applicants and the total money requested in the first window. So I do have that information available and can just provide it here. I know Joey said you could follow up, but I just found it quickly. The first window for needs assessments, there were 41 applications received, requesting a total of about 1.9 million. It's important to note that the cap for needs assessments in the first window was 50K, which has been expanded to 100K for window 2. So that amount of funding request was at the lower amount. For the mobility project vouchers, there were 33 applications received, requesting about 31.9 million total. And on the Clean Mobility Options website, there are links to go to the awardees for each of those categories, and there's a map which shows the awarded and unawarded proposals. All right, thank you, team.
I see we have a question from Paul from EBCE, and I will unmute you.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul with EBCE. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Kind of following up there, is there a new cap for programs? Last year it was $1 million. Is that increased as well? Just wanted to touch base on that point.
Currently, the funding for Window 2 Mobility Project Vouchers is $1 million per project, and for Community Transportation Needs Assessment is $100,000. One thing that we will mention is with governor's proposed budget, there are opportunities to potentially expand the funding amount, but that is still, as you know, the government's budget hasn't come out yet, so we're still in the works with that. But when we do receive information regarding potential additional funding for the entire program, we will follow up with awardees to provide additional insight into additional funding opportunity. So currently, right now, as stated in this webinar and on the website, it is $1 million per project for MPVs and $100,000 for CTNs.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
I don't see any other hands raised at this time. We can give it another minute or so. I'm still not seeing any hands raised. I don't know if you want to conclude the webinar and.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you to the administrative team for the support and for answering questions to applicants, the applicants. In addition, this will again be posted on the cleanmobilityoptions.org website within the next 2 to 4 weeks. Please, please, please attend the webinars if you are at all interested or want to learn more about Clean Mobility Options Program. These webinars are very, very useful, although long and quite informative. They will be recorded, so you can always reference them to your team afterwards. Additionally, please check out the website and sign up to the newsletter if you want to receive the most up-to-date information regarding funding, regarding applications, regarding awardees. So it's just a very, very grateful, useful tool. And then I just wanted to thank everyone for attending. It was an hour and a half long. You all hung in there. Thank you very much. Again, we do offer technical assistance to anyone and everyone who's interested in the program and have the opportunity to meet one-on-one virtually to assist you with any questions you have. Please also reach out through the technical assistant online form to answer the questions as well. Feel free to call us through the hotline. Again, the CMO administrative team, CARB, CEC, CalSTART, Shared Use Mobility Center, and Civic Well are all here to really work with you and help provide the most clear directions possible to successfully complete your application. Thank you very much, everyone, and we look forward to the upcoming webinar again on September 7th and September 8th. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.